In a stunning political storm, California, Governor Gavin unleashed a furious attack on Vice President J.D. Vance, branding him selfish and inhumane. But what followed shocked the nation and flipped the entire narrative on its head. J.D. Vance's calm, yet devastating response would become the turning point that nobody expected. It all began early one morning, when Governor Newsom's tweet ripped through social media calling Vance selfish. Inhumane, accusing him of enjoying Disneyland in Bayou Country. While families were supposedly being torn apart, the tweet wasn't alone. It came with a photo of a beaming J.D. Vance, surrounded by laughing children at Disneyland, which only seemed to mock Newsom's harsh claims. Within moments, hashtags like Dammy Vance Exposed and Jarred Disneyland Scandal exploded across the platform. News outlets seized on the drama. Protesters crowded the California state capitol waving signs that read "Families Torn Apart" by Trump's VP, and shame on J.D. Vance. Meanwhile, in Ohio, Vance's own supporters were bewildered, whispering, could J.D. really be that heartless? As the story spiraled, Vance quietly took in the tweet, aides bracing for an eruption. But the vice president only muttered, Gavin, you just made the biggest mistake of your career. Reporters swarmed Vance's press secretary, demanding if it was true the vice president vacationed at Disneyland, while ICE deportations surged. Yes, he was at Disneyland. Yesterday, the aide confirmed, but you're missing why he was there. Yet the media frenzy didn't stop. Self-righteous pundits accused Vance of cruelty and hypocrisy. In the Oval Office, President Trump called with a warning, Jay, they're coming for your throat. If you don't strike back, they'll own the story by sundown. But Vance was unfazed. Mr. President, I've got this, he assured calmly. That night in his hotel room, Vance sat surrounded by files stamped classified California fraud investigations, border intel operation, sanctuary sabotage. With a deep breath, he posted one chilling tweet. Governor Newsom, let's talk about families. And while we're at it, let's talk about the billions you've stolen from them. The internet froze within 10 minutes. It had 2 million likes and nearly 500,000 shares. Newsom rattled fired back, accusing Vance of laughing at torn families at Disneyland. But the vice president then held a bombshell press conference where, with absolute composure, he stated Governor Newsom is lying. Those families are violent criminals who attacked federal agents and destroyed property being returned to their own families in their own countries. Gavin Newsom didn't just allow this, he funded it, he aided it. He owns it. Reporters audibly gasped while Vance pressed on, exposing how for years Newsom masqueraded behind false compassion to siphon billions from California taxpayers, and now had the audacity to accuse him of inhumanity. This shook everything. Newsom's office exploded into chaos, aides shouting to get ahead of the narrative, but leaks began emerging, showing California emergency funds flowing to shell organizations tied to violent riots. Meanwhile, at Disneyland, a viral photo showed a little boy in a wheelchair holding a sign thanking J.D. for visiting. Hearts broke nationwide. A grandmother in Kansas wiped her tears, saying they lied about him. He's not the monster. They say the next day, J.D. released a video explaining he was at Disneyland to bring joy to children battling cancer and rare diseases, calling out Newsom for spending billions meant for California's poor. Protect violent criminals, and lifted a stack of documents stamped confidential, which spread like wildfire online. Hashtags like Newsom Exposed and Justice of the Kids trended across the globe. In Sacramento, Newsom's aides panicked. Donors threatened to pull out, and Newsom ordered dig up dirt on Vance. But the first fracture in his own camp came when Lydia, a longtime staffer, stood before cameras trembling as she admitted the governor knew exactly what he was doing, calling J.D. selfish while fully aware he was with terminally ill kids. She then revealed those families Newsom referenced were violent offenders deported after injuring federal agents, and that Newsom secretly funded organizations to sabotage Trump's immigration policies. The crowd gasped inside Newsom's office. Aides looked at him in horror, one whispering, "Is it true?" as the governor slammed his fist, demanding they destroy Lydia's credibility. But it was too late. Her confession looped on every network alongside footage of J.D. gently holding a frail girl named Emily's hand at Disneyland. A final press conference saw J.D. stand before a packed room, weary yet unbowed, explaining he didn't go to Disneyland to enjoy himself. He went because children fighting for their lives deserve a vice president who shows up, and if that made him selfish, he would wear the label proudly. Silence swept the room. Then he looked straight ahead, telling America that Gavin Newsom didn't just lie, he betrayed his people for years, siphoning billions from the poor to fund secret operations that only fueled chaos across the nation. Reporters and citizens alike sat stunned, tears filling eyes, as one cameraman whispered he just buried Newsom. With a single sentence outside in California, protests erupted, not against J.D., but against their own governor. Chant to resign. now rang out while across America families wept over the simple truth that J.D. Vance had a heart bigger than any smear campaign could ever tarnish aiding criminal. Destruction of federal property because of a personal grudge against President Trump that was the real face of selfishness and inhumanity. And when J.D. Vance called out the room, exploded reporters shouted questions, some too choked up to even get the words out, while in living rooms across America families clung to each other and cried. A mother whispered through tears, "He's fighting for us." And in that moment, J.D. Vance's face wasn't just on their television screens, it was carved into their hearts. As the press conference replayed across the nation, another shock wave slammed into Gavin Newsom's administration when a whistleblower dropped explosive files online, exposing secret emails between Newsom's office and radical groups with subject lines like "funding secured for weekend demonstrations, keep pressure on Trump's immigration policy." The documents showed how Newsom had siphoned $24 billion from California's housing budget to bankroll protests and pay legal fees for repeat offenders. When reporters demanded to know if the files were real, J.D. answered, without flinching, "They're real. I've been holding back out of respect for Californians. But the truth can't stay buried forever." Across the country, anger and grief collided. A father who lost his daughter in a hit and run by an undocumented felon, released under California's sanctuary laws, shouted, "This isn't politics anymore, it's betrayal." Meanwhile, J.D. returned briefly to Ohio to visit Emily's family, the little girl he had met at Disneyland. Cameras caught him gripping her small hand as she whispered, "Don't let the bad man hurt the kids again." J.D.'s jaw clenched, and he promised, "I won't, Emily, I swear." Back in California, Newsom's inner circle was crumbling. A senior aide warned him governor donors are pulling out half the legislature. "Once you gone," Newsom snapped, "it's all lies. J.D. Vance is running a smear job. Why can't you see that?" But his own staff wasn't listening. And that very morning, a recording leaked of Newsom laughing at a fundraiser, mocking Trump supporters, and admitting they were making martyrs of criminals. To bury them, the tape shattered what trust remained. Even loyal Newsom voters began to question everything. Soon, protesters stormed Sacramento not to defend their governor, but to demand his resignation, while J.D. chose silence, spent his time reading The Giving Tree to children in a cancer ward. One nurse wept, asking, "Why is this man called selfish?" Across America, millions wanted the same. By dawn, J.D. Vance wasn't just a political figure. He had become a symbol of moral courage. Then came the final hammer blow at a crowded press event. J.D. faced the cameras, reminding everyone that Newsom had ridiculed him for spending time at Disneyland with terminally ill kids, claiming he was enjoying himself while families were torn apart. But those families weren't destroyed by me, J.D. said, his voice steady. They were destroyed by the criminals Gavin protected, holding up a folder labeled Operation Shield. He declared Governor Newsom didn't just ignore the law, he funded attacks on federal agents and covered them up. He used California as his personal bank, robbing billions from hard-working families. The silence was suffocating. Reporters sat frozen, and then J.D.'s voice softened, delivering words that would haunt Newsom. "Governor, Newsom wanted me to look like a monster, but monsters always reveal themselves in the end." Across Sacramento, the air felt heavy. Newsom's mansion, once alive with power, was now filled with dread. Aides updated him on the fallout. More donors gone. CNN demanding a live interview. Newsom seated there, all falling for Vance's sob story. But at that moment, breaking news lit up TV screens across the nation, showing whistleblower documents proving Newsom funneled state money to cover up violent riots. Images of burned buildings, injured officers, and signed wire transfers stunned the public. In Ohio, J.D. sat quietly with Emily's family. Emily's mother gripped his hand and pleaded, "Mr. Vance, don't let him win. Our kids need someone like you." J.D. nodded, eyes misty. "I won't stop for Emily, for every family." As night fell, crowds packed the streets outside Newsom's mansion, chanting, "Resign, resign." Inside, Gavin sat blankly, replaying J.D.'s haunting words, "Monsters always reveal themselves in the end." Meanwhile, a nurse from Disneyland posted a video of J.D. singing "You Are My Sunshine" to children in a cancer ward. One frail boy clung to J.D.'s arm, whispering, "You're my hero." The video soared across social media. A woman sobbed on TikTok, saying he's no politician, he's a man with a heart. Even longtime Trump critics admitted on air, "I don't care about politics anymore." J.D. Vance showed more humanity in one day than most leaders do in a lifetime. Then a fresh scandal dropped, exposing Newsom's secret plan to stir border chaos, blamed Trump, and used the fallout to destroy J.D. In Washington, President Trump leaned back, watching the news, muttering, "Jay isn't just winning, he's rewriting the rules." J.D. went live on national television For a final address, voice trembling slightly, he spoke of Emily, how she begged him to protect kids like her. That was why he went to Disneyland to prove those kids were not forgotten. Governor Newsom called me selfish for that. JD said, but selfishness is stealing billions from Californians. Family selfishness is shielding violent criminals, while innocent children suffer. Selfishness is turning those children into pawns. A single tear slipped down his cheek. This isn't about politics anymore. It's about what kind of country we want to be. Do we lift up the innocent or betray them? Across America, people wept, truckers pulled over praying, nurses hugged patients tighter, and in Sacramento, Newsom slumped in his chair as attorney, whispering DOJ just filed charges, conspiracy, fraud, aiding. Violent offenders, a list is long, sir. Outside, the crowd's chants roared louder, lock him up, lock him up. Meanwhile, JD sat quietly by Emily's bedside as she squeezed his hand. Promise, you won't stop fighting. She whispered. JD nodded, voice cracking, not until people like Gavin Newsom are held accountable. I swear a nurse captured the moment on video, and within hours it flooded every feed. By morning, 3 top California officials resigned, saying we cannot defend the governor's actions any longer. Inside his office, Newsom raged, calling them cowards, accusing JD of manipulating America with sick kids. But nobody listened anymore. In Washington, JD Vance addressed the nation again, saying, I don't hate Gavin Newsom, I pity him. Because true leaders don't destroy lives when they sacrifice the people they serve. Then he spoke of Emily's wish to see a country that protects children, not criminals. Let's make that dream real for her. For every innocent soul, millions watched and wept, even seasoned. Commentators whispered, whatever happens next, JD Vance has become the heart of this nation. Then federal agents raided a Sacramento office tied to Newsom's offshore accounts as helicopters swirled overhead. His last press conference collapsed when a reporter held up a photo of Newsom dining with cartel figures. The room gasped. Gavin stammered, unable to respond. The broadcast cut to a live feed of JD standing by Emily's bed, telling her she was braver than many powerful men. Emily hugged him, whispering, thank you for stopping the bad man. Across the country, tears flowed, and by sunrise, thousands stood outside Newsom's gates, holding candles and signs that read justice to the families. JD Vance was right. Newsom must go inside. Gavin sat, pale hands shaking, as his attorney whispered the words he had dreaded most, sir. They just issued the warrant. The pounding grew louder. Federal marshals were here. Gavin bolted upright, insisting they wouldn't dare. But the relentless banging on his mansion, doors silenced him. Open up, federal warrant, came the shout as armed agents prepared to breach. Meanwhile, on live television, JD Vance spoke with a soft yet unwavering tone, telling the country this wasn't a victory for him, but for every American family Gavin betrayed, for the parents who lost children to violence Gavin funded, and the sick kids he mocked. Tears streamed across living rooms. A grandmother in Alabama whispered to her husband, that man has a heart of gold. And in a quiet hospital room, little Emily managed the faintest smile, whispering. Jepp's cameras rolled, capturing the moment Gavin Newsom was marched out of his mansion in handcuffs, his hair a mess, his designer suit